Donald Trump is declaring victory in Michigan, withdrawing his lawsuit, citing the canvassers who refused to certify the results of the election, namely in Detroit. Trump is now saying that was the point of the lawsuit. The relief we wanted was to stop the certification. The certification has been stopped, therefore, but wait, they ended up actually certifying and then rescinding. I got no idea what's going on. This is a crazy story, but my friends, we all having a good time, aren't we? Now the left, oh man, this is too good. They're celebrating. Trump just withdrew his last lawsuit. It's over. Trump loses, because the only narrative they can project is we're winning. We're the best. They're not getting a rational view of things. Trump is on the ropes. I still believe it is likely Joe Biden becomes the next president, but the media called it prematurely, and Trump is fighting tooth and nail, and he has weird victories coming his way. Get this. A poll came out apparently saying only 46% of people think Trump should concede right now. That means there are many Joe Biden voters that think Donald Trump should not concede, which makes no sense. I gotta say, I'm starting to think more and more every day as we see this kind of stuff that Donald Trump might actually win. I don't know, man. I'll tell you this, though. The fact the left came out, I saw this story from these leftists. They're like, Trump withdrawing his lawsuit means they win. And I'm like, is that what you think? Because if you don't approach this rationally and actually talk about what's going on, you think you won. It's red meat. These leftists are like, hey, guys, guess what? Trump's an idiot. And they're all like laughing and cheering and dancing in the street and stomping on Cheetos. And Trump has a real clear, an actual path to victory. Now, at the time of recording this, Trump has not yet done his press conference where he's going to announce. So that will be up later at 4 p.m. Most likely we'll see what he says. But I think Trump does have a path to victory. And I think Trump's planned this for a long time. You see, here's what I've been saying. The other day on the IRL podcast, when the canvassers in Wayne County said they wouldn't certify, I sort of had an epiphany when I was like, wait a minute. What if the lawsuits are just to buy time until this happens? And I think this just confirmed it. The moment they said we question the results, Trump withdraws his lawsuit. Trump just needed to buy time until there was a real challenge within the states. I also think I was listening to the audio from Giuliani in Pennsylvania, and I'm like, I got to be honest, not doing a good job. Seriously. So there's one part where the judge in Pennsylvania says, are you trying to apply strict scrutiny? Meaning, has someone's fundamental rights been violated? Giuliani says, clarify. Then he said, and the left went nuts because he wanted a clarification. But Giuliani was like, yes, people's right to vote was denied. And the judge keeps asking, how? And Giuliani keeps saying, because in these districts, they were allowing ballot curing, and in these districts, they weren't. And I'm like, dude, it is so easy to explain how this is denying someone the right to vote. But they couldn't give the judge a good answer. And then I started to think, like, are they just buying time, or are they bad at this? And maybe that's just me and I'm arrogant. That's a possibility, too, because far be it from me to question an actual, lawyer like Rudy Giuliani. But it sounded kind of like they were just going in circles, buying time, maybe for something like this. Raise enough questions. The Republicans then challenge it, saying we can't certify it with these discrepancies. And then Trump immediately withdraws his lawsuit from Michigan because he doesn't need it anymore. The questions have arisen. And now the Electoral College might open up. I will say, to Rudy Giuliani's argument to the judge, the easiest way to explain why I would argue, if you are in a district and you're not allowed to cure your ballot and someone is, your right to vote is being taken away from you. And the question from, the Democrats and the judge was like, well, how so? You were allowed to vote, right? Let me stop right there and say this. If you told someone, it is your fundamental right to compete on equal terms in a foot race. And then at the last minute, they said, oh, but you don't get to wear shoes. Your opponent gets to wear shoes. That is not an equal competition. And it, in my opinion, is a workaround. You're telling someone, here's the baseline for what we allow in an election. And then you make sure to favor one side. That is not an election. That's not free and fair. It's not fair at all. I think that's a simple way to explain it. The standards should be to the lowest, to the easiest, not to the hardest. You can't tell someone you're allowed to vote if you can climb to the top of this tree to get your vote. No one's denying you. It's like, well, dude, clearly I'm not going to climb a tree to get my ballot. I understand it's not the same argument. But the curing process is that somebody they filled out their ballot, sent it in, and they went, oopsie, you made a mistake, and throw it in the trash. Whereas other people in the Democrat districts, they were like, you want to fix that so we can count it for you? That's not a free and fair election. It is not equal. It's that simple. But anyway, here's what I think. I think it's going to come to Pennsylvania to the certification deadline, which I think is in a few days. I'm not entirely sure. I should check because I might have. I think Michigan is the 23rd. Might be Pennsylvania. So I'm fact check me because I want to be sure. But maybe they're just waiting until the Republicans and the state legislators say we don't trust this. We've got these active lawsuits. We're confused. This is crazy. What do we do? And then that's Trump's real plan. So let me actually just read the news, and I want to show you this poll. This poll is the funniest thing, actually. Let me show you this. 46% of voters say Trump should concede immediately. You may notice that 46 is less than 50. That's right. So they say 32 say he should only concede if he can't prove it. That's actually big. And then you've got, I think, 12% that say he should not concede no matter what. 9% didn't know and had no opinion. So you got 44% saying Trump should have his day in court, 46 saying he shouldn't. But that's the plurality, not the majority. What that means, 72% of Democrats saying Trump should concede right away. What does that mean? Does that mean that there's about 28% that are like, maybe he should challenge this? That I find really, really weird. Really weird. Now, check this out. In this Trump withdraws federal lawsuit in Michigan, citing Wayne County canvasser affidavit story, there is a major controversy arising. Trump targets vote certification in late bid to block Biden. And they're saying that Trump contacted these people and then all of a sudden they rescinded their certification vote. So this is going to go nuts. This is going to get crazy. Let's read the news. The Detroit Free Press says the campaign for President Trump withdrew a much ballyhooed federal lawsuit on Thursday, incorrectly characterizing the actions of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers as its rationale for its decision. The campaign championed the suit when it was filed last week, with surrogates speaking on national television about the more than 100 affidavits from Republican poll challengers and others included in the lawsuit. The affidavits and most other attacks from the Trump campaign in Michigan focus on the counting of absentee ballots at TCF Center in Detroit. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, Lavora Barnes, head of the Michigan Democratic Party, and others have called these attacks racist attempts by the campaign to disenfranchise black voters in Detroit. I'm going to stop right there and throw it back at him. I think if you've got the opportunity to guarantee the safety and security of the black vote in Michigan and you refuse, you're racist. Because if there is impropriety, then an investigation will harm no one. Stopping the investigation might allow fraud or impropriety to dilute the votes of the minority voters. Therefore, the appropriate thing to do to not be racist is to guarantee them strict scrutiny in a non-legal sense. We need to be absolutely sure that their votes are protected at all costs. So why are the Democrats denying it? Probably because the Democrats are racist. They say while the campaign suggested the affidavits were proof of what they considered to be election misconduct and irregularities, a free press review showed they did not contain evidence of widespread fraud or misconduct. But in a new filing Thursday, what's this? A new filing. Campaign attorney Thor Hearn states the campaign decided not to pursue the lawsuit because two members of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers do not want to certify the county's election results. The Wayne County Board of County Canvassers met and declined to certify the results of the presidential election, the three-sentence filing states. You mean to tell me that Trump's people were prepared for this? I think this might be Trump's long-term strategy. I think Trump might be doing the lawsuits just to buy time as they get to this process. Rudy Giuliani, former mayor of New York City and a Trump campaign attorney, echoed the sentiment in a statement Thursday morning. This morning, we are withdrawing our lawsuit in Michigan as a direct result of achieving the relief we sought to stop the election in Wayne County from being prematurely certified before residents can be assured that every legal vote has been counted and every illegal vote has not been counted, Giuliani said. The statement and legal filing are inaccurate. Although the four-member board initially deadlocked 2-2 on a vote to certify, the two Republican members eventually agreed to vote to certify the results. Certification of county results is a necessary step in the process to formalize final vote tallies in Michigan elections. After the board voted to certify the results, however, board chairwoman Monica Palmer and fellow GOP member William Hartman signed affidavits saying they oppose certifying Wayne County results because they do not feel the state will follow through with an audit. These affidavits were included in the federal lawsuit. Not only that, they allege harassment. I believe maybe just the woman. A dude went on Zoom publicly and said, your kids go to this school. Right then, she probably said, I'll sign whatever you want, please. And now I think a judge probably could look at it and be like, yeah, we're not going to. You can't. Look, if the lady said no, people threatened her family, and then she said, fine, I don't consider it to be a legitimate certification. But we'll see. We'll see. They say, there is no legal mechanism in place for board members to rescind their votes, a spokesman for the Michigan Bureau of Elections told the Free Press on Thursday. There is a legal mechanism. It's called court. That's what we have judges for, to interpret the law. And a judge could say injunction. As of earlier this week, all 83 Michigan counties had certified their election results after conducting the required canvass. A standard review of the election process, President-elect Joe Biden now has roughly 154,000 vote lead over Trump in Michigan. The Michigan State Board of Canvassers will meet Monday to vote on whether to certify the results of the state. The board is also comprised of 4 members, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. Mary Schinkel, wife of GOP member Norm Schinkel, was among those who filed an affidavit as part of the Trump campaign lawsuit. So the Michigan State Board might actually just say no. They said 4 members, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. Okay. So what happens if the two Republicans say, upon seeing these affidavits and the threats these people received, we refuse to certify irregular vote counts? You know what's the craziest thing about all this? I covered this in my morning segment. Maybe you saw it. In response to the refusal to certify, the Democrats said, these errors we're seeing happened all over the state. It's no big deal. And I'm like, wait. Uniformity in errors is actually evidence of widespread voter impropriety. And they admitted it. They said these errors existed in every jurisdiction, in every election. Okay. Whatever you say, Democrat, I agree. Wonderful. We can't certify. Is that what they expect to happen? Terrible argument. Saying that this problem, creating a discrepancy with the amount of people who voted and the amount who showed up, just shows that, it's normal. Imagine it this way. The issue at hand, you might have heard me say it in the previous segment, is that there's unbalanced voter books. A different amount of signatures compared to votes. That's a problem. They say, it's really easy, actually. Some people showed up, signed in, and then didn't actually vote. Nah, sorry, I'm not playing it. You got to prove it. Because what happens if the people who just decided not to vote actually did, and they were Trump voters, and then Trump didn't get the votes he needed? You see how that works. Now, would he have gotten 154,000? I don't know about that. But if you can't justify or explain why the books are unbalanced, then you probably shouldn't certify, should you? Or at the very least, you do a preliminary investigation and you explain why this is. Well, they didn't. So now this is where we're at. Republican state lawmakers introduce articles of impeachment against Governor Whitmer. It's just getting spicier and spicier, huh? Well, this is more about COVID and unconstitutional behavior, but it is Michigan, so I'll tell you. When I heard that they issued these papers, I started thinking to myself, I'm like, what a crazy time to be alive, Because how often do we get an impeachment of a governor, a president, and these election irregularities and all this crazy shenanigans all at the exact same time? Look, man, I know these people don't want to hear it. These leftists complaining about it, but the system is destabilizing. An impeachment against a governor. A year ago, we had impeachment against, not even a year ago. Earlier this year, we had impeachment against Donald Trump. Now we have this contentious election, accusations of fraud and irregularities and affidavits being signed and states being challenged. This is a fairly unprecedented moment in our history. And I'm not confident we pull out of this. You know why? There's 2 realities now, and they're completely disparate. On the right, there is ample evidence of fraud. Some of it's even widespread. There's evidence of widespread impropriety. Donald Trump did win. They're stealing the election. Look at these mathematical anomalies. You're never going to convince a Trump supporter they're wrong on that. They've seen too much on the left. Well, for the most part on the left, they just watch CNN and NBC and MSNBC. And they've been told over and over again, President-elect Joe Biden, ignore everything else. Now, I got to be honest. One side is more right than the other. But the people on the left that watch NBC and CNN are convinced it's over. The media told us. I'm not going to investigate or question the constitutional process. Right now, we are still in an election. It is not over. The Constitution doesn't say when the media calls it, it's done. So Trump going through these legal processes is a part of the electoral. There's safeguards in place specifically to make sure that if we have a contested election, we work through it properly. So why is the media and the left trying so hard to discredit the constitutional process? They don't care for the Constitution. They wanted to ban speech and guns. They don't care. They say the media called it, it's over. Shut up and sit down. Sit down and shut up. But people on the right are like, the Constitution, this is what we the basis of our country, can't be ignored. So here's the reality. There's evidence of voter fraud, 100%. I think we have 5 or 6 affidavits out of Georgia saying that Democrats and Republicans alike saw these strangely uniform, printed-looking ballots for Biden. It seemed odd. You've got the irregularities in Michigan. You've got the Nevada poll watchers' sworn statements. You've got sworn statements from people in Pennsylvania. Ample evidence. Widespread enough to affect the election? I don't know. But I tell you this, when you turn on Fox or you turn on CNN or you turn on NBC, they say no evidence. No evidence. Look at this. Trump targets vote certification in late bid to block Biden. They say, getting nowhere in the courts, President Donald Trump's scattershot efforts to overturn President-elect Joe Biden's victory is shifting toward obscure election boards to certify the vote as Trump and his allies seek to upend the electoral process, sow chaos, and perpetuate unsubstantiated doubts about the count. The Democrats told us there were errors in every single jurisdiction. I am not. That's in the story. That's their quote. So that's substantiated. Talk about crazy. They go on to talk about the initial refusals. And, you know, as of course, they always say, I don't know if they bring it up in here. Yes, here we go. Here's what they say. The party is also putting pressure on county officials across the state to delay certification, even though there hasn't been any evidence of legitimate questions about the vote tally showing that Biden won in Arizona. So that's specifically referring to Arizona. Notice how they keep saying there hasn't been any evidence. But here's the trick. Any evidence of legitimate questions. You see, what does that mean? What's evidence of a legitimate question? What is evidence of a legit? Now, if you said evidence of voter fraud, okay. Why didn't they say that? Oh, because maybe there is. What is a legitimate question? Well, it's an opinion, I suppose. So why would you need evidence of a question? If someone asked the question, you'd know they asked the question. You see how they frame things to manipulate? Here's my favorite. Let's do this. 46% of voters say Trump should concede immediately. They say a plurality of voters say Trump should concede the presidential race to President-elect Joe Biden, according to a new Politico Morning Consult poll released Tuesday. Hey, The Hill. Joe Biden is not the president-elect. This is psychotic. You can see they're desperately trying to control you. The president-elect is president-elect when the Electoral College votes for the president-elect. And that hasn't happened yet. There are still many lawsuits happening, and there are still legal proceedings in general, in which case, until Trump concedes or the Electoral College votes for Biden, he is not the president-elect. In past elections, the Romney concedes, McCain concedes, and then we say president-elect. Okay, great. Because the other guy conceded, so we get it. It's a foregone conclusion. Not right now. Trump is going through the legal process, as is his constitutional right, and they're saying he's trying to steal the election because of it. They're saying Joe Biden is the president-elect. Trump, just submit. Why won't you bend your knee? Because Americans have that spirit, that independent spirit that Anthony Fauci so complained about. Did you hear this when he said, Americans have an independent spirit, but it's time to do what you're told? These people are the evil empire, you know? They're coming here and telling us to drop to our knees and give them allegiance and just bow. No, that's not how America works. And that's why they hate the Constitution. You can't have your little old great reset, huh? Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, because we have a Constitution and we still have some people in this country that are saying, no, we're not going to allow this. It's funny how the Democrats just cave immediately. Build Back Better says all of these different politicians are all across Europe and the U.S. Very creepy. Well, I'm sorry. But in this country, We do not just give in to some random appointee saying, do what you're told. And to be fair, they don't even have a majority of people saying Trump should concede. Not that I believe these polls anyway. I'll tell you this. Based on what we saw with a historic 7-point margin of failure, I can only imagine that not only do they have a minority, it's probably not 46. Let's just shave off 7 points and say 39. And then add those points to the 32 and say 37 to 39. But 12% then say he should concede under no circumstances. And there you go. The majority of people, if we accommodate that 7-point margin of error because the polls are all broken. If we go by what they say, it's basically split down the middle. That means some of Joe Biden's own voters think Trump should not concede unless he can't prove it. So they're basically saying, okay, Trump, prove it. Okay, I agree. Okay, Trump, prove it. Release the Kraken, prove it exists. I want to see it. Trump thinks he's won. He's withdrawn his lawsuit. And I got to say, I think this may be all part of the plan. I'm not kidding. Trump is going to go for an electoral college certification victory, a House delegation or something. The states maybe will just appoint their own electors. It won't reach 270 because there will be a dispute. Some states won't send anybody. Supreme Court will say House delegations. Trump wins. Trump can still win this. And I tell you this, a week ago, it did not look this good for Trump. It looked like he was desperate and flinging around. Now it's getting better for Trump with this certification issue. It's starting to look really good. I guess we'll see. I got to go listen to this press conference, which happened. By the time you're watching this, it's already probably happened, but Trump's usually late, so we'll see. But next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. at youtube.com/Timcast. It's a different channel from this one. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.